Recently, someone suggested that we teach them how to play Magic the next time they came over. So naturally, my brothers and I said yes. But the more we thought, the more problems we encountered. Recently, we had all scrapped our old decks, and looking through my decks, I had, Energy, a confusing concept to beginning player, Mono Blue Aggro, a deck known for punishing bad play, Slivers, a deck that needs so much work I don't even enjoy playing it anymore. Commander is not a good format to begin with, and Brawl isn't very popular. So Evan, my older brother, had an interesting idea. What if we created dual decks to create the simple and balanced concept necessary to learn Magic? This is that journey. The first thing I did was to flip through my binder. We wanted to create 2 lists that split games around 50-50, so we needed to just start somewhere and build decks. We had no budget, so I personally thought back to my first 60-card deck, Blue-Red Artifacts. We dug up a Wizards of the Coast article that advised not using artifacts or enchantments to teach new players. So naturally, I kept looking. I had an Aether Revolt Planeswalker deck Tezzeret laying around, and I had a playset of both Ornithopter and Quicksmith Spy. So I searched my collection to see what else I could find. Nothing for artifacts. But I found instant sorcery stuff, so I pulled out cards to try that. But like most times I build a deck, I grabbed way too many cards. 63 to be exact. All non-land cards. So after the preliminary cut, around 50 remained, which is when you start cutting cards because they seem confusing or underwhelming. Finally, the first deck was ready for testing, but it needed something to play against. It was now my brother's turn to look through his collection and create something fun. The second deck that we chose was Vampires, and the matchup was pretty darn bad. The decks felt weak and too close. No deck could dominate or pull out a finisher. Our 6th game went about 45 minutes, and we decided to pull up the power level. The decks should be ones that we could keep if we wanted, but the gameplay looks a little like this. I'll just narrate it for you. So you can see here as you roll dice, I roll a 7, Evan rolls a 12, meaning he's going to go first, and he can really open very aggressively. But I'm going to have 1 extra card in my hand, which will be better for the late game. I start off with a decent suite of removal, but unfortunately so does Evan. He also has a way to gain him a bit of life early, and he has a Legion Lieutenant, which I'm scared of. So the Sky Barons comes out and just gives him that 1 extra life that is just going to be a pain. I open with a Mountain. Unfortunately, I have nothing else to do, so I am forced to just pass the turn back to Evan. Evan is going to drop a Plains right here, and then he's going to tap 2 mana, and he's going to play the Dusk Legion Zealot, which really hurts for me because he's getting the 1/1 body that is a vampire, which is relevant in his deck, and he's also getting cards back in his hand, so he hasn't really lost anything this turn. So that card is a sneaky but really good card in the deck. I'm going to play a Tormenting Voice here, and I'm going to discard Lightning Strike. Just because that's more expensive removal that I don't think is going to wind up being efficient in the game. And it's another instant sorcery that can go in my graveyard, and I can later use to power up creatures like Enigma Drake or the Chimera. Evan right here is going to play his land for turn. His land is going to be a swamp, and then he's going to wind up tapping 2 of his mana to play the Legion Lieutenant, which is not a card I'm a fan of because it's going to boost up his creature to help it do extra damage to me. And now I know once I have open mana, I have to get rid of that thing because it's going to start doing a lot of damage to me. So I probably have 1 turn that maybe I can let it live. So I'm going to play the Chimera in hopes that it can be a blocker and it can take the Lieutenant or the Zealot out and hopefully not die. So after I play the Chimera, I just pass the turn. And again, I'm hoping that it lives. I'm hoping I can block. I'm hoping I can kill something. And that doesn't quite get to be the case. Right here, Evan casts a Mortify, targeting my Chimera, which I'm not very happy about, because that represented somewhat of an offensive threat, as well as one of my only blockers that I've had to this point. And then he attacks me for 4, I take 4. Then he passes us the turn. I untap with 3 mana. In this turn, I am willing to cast something like a Divination. I'm willing to get more cards in my hand for the future, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to play Divination rather than main phase removal, just because main phase removal by itself is not really what you want to be doing, and Divination could play well with the Lightning Axe that I had in my hand at the time, so I wanted to get more cards so I could discard cards here off the divination, I find an Enigma Drake, which is a pretty good card in this situation. I've had a lot of instants and sorceries bouncing around from my hand to my graveyard. Evan's going to play his 5th land right here, and then he's going to attack me once again for 4. And 10 life is not really the amount of life I want to be down at, so I'm going to cast Lightning Axe right here. I am going to target the Legion Lieutenant, so I am only taking 1 damage, and I'm going to discard a Shock, because I'm playing around Vampire Zeal right here. If I cast Shock on the Legion Lieutenant and he has Vampire Zeal, a card that will give it +2/+2 in first strike, then I've wasted a card from my hand, and then I have to play Lightning Axe and discard another card. So that means I would be using 3 cards just to get rid of one of his cards. And it would get 1 card of his hand, so it would be like a 3-for-2, but I would rather just get rid of it right now. And also discarding that Shock is going to power up my Drakes and my Chimeras as we move throughout the game. And right here you can see the Forerunner of the Legion that Evan just played. You can see it goes and it grabs the Champion of Dusk, and that's a card I'm not really happy about. That thing represents a lot of cards in his hand. It represents a lot of card advantage. And if I find a way to get out of cards in my hand, which has definitely happened in this matchup before, that thing is very, very good at refreshing his hand. Now, to me, the likelihood of him having a Vampire Zeal or Moment of Craving or something has gone up dramatically. Now here I'm going to play Tormenting Voice, I'm going to discard a Divination. Again, now I'm powering up my Enigma Drake, which is kind of what I want to do with that play. I believe I already have another Divination at that point in time in my hand, which is why I'm comfortable with discarding 1. Also because I'm going to see some more cards. Now Evan is going to draw the Champion of Dusk. The only thing good about the Forerunner is I already know what he's going to draw. But unfortunately what he's going to draw also is going to be a 4/4, which would trade all too well with Enigma Drake, and with Vampire Zeal it would be crazy, but the Champion of Dusk is going to come in right here, and it's going to get him 3 cards to his hand at the price of 3 life, which is really good in a Vampire deck tapped onto Champion of Dusk, because that's a lot of card advantage. And sometimes the number of cards in my hand can dwindle, which is not something I'm a fan of. Now here he is going to use +1/+1 from the Forerunner of the Legion to give it to Dusk Legion Zealot and attack with a 2/2. Now, I'm not going to block here because, again, Vampire Zeal, the card I've been playing around, if he has that, it gives it first strike. It kills my only offensive threat throughout this entire game. So here I'm going to play yet another Enigma Drake. Now, this puts me in a lot better spot. Now I have 2 big flyers, so Evan's going to have to attack, and I might have to block, depending on what he plays. But now with the Enigma Drake, I can feel comfortable and I can attack him to a point where his life total may not be as strong as he wants it to be. And I can potentially get in a situation where I may be able to win the game. Now here I'm going to attack for 8 and I'm going to put him to 9. So now being tapped out, having nothing left to do, I've already attacked. I'm going to pass the turn to Evan, who is going to untap with a total of 6 mana and most likely 1 turn to kill me. And he's going to play Scoured Banner. It's a card that is all too important right here, because he gives him that 1 extra life, meaning that if I can somehow survive his attack, if I can make it to my next turn, I am going to need to top deck an instant or sorcery. Again, this is assuming that I have 1 creature that does survive to have the lethal damage on Evan. Now here Anointed Deacon comes out, which is going to make the math even worse, because if he has a Vampire Zeal I've been playing around for the entire game, then I am going to have to block a creature this time. So he is going to attack with all his creatures that can attack, and I'm going to choose to block the Champion of Dusk, because the Champion of Dusk is going to trade with mine if he does not have the Vampire Zeal, which at this point he does not choose to play. And then I'm going to take 6 damage from the other creatures because of the Anointed Deacon and the Forerunner of the Legion triggers, and I'm going to drop to 5. So this turn, I need an instant sorcery off the top. But in my hand, I have Lightning Axe, so if I don't, there may be a way I can survive by killing off one of his larger creatures, and then just blocking if I can, blocking whatever I can. But luckily for me, I draw the top card for the turn, and it's Lightning Axe. So now I have a way to deal with 2 of his creatures, even if he somehow has a way to gain life. I'm in a pretty good situation. But I'm going to play Murmuring Mystic just in case he has a way to gain that life. And then I'm going to cast my first Lightning Axe, discarding an island and creating a bird. I'm going to target his Anointed Deacon and kill it. Now I'm going to play my second Lightning Axe. This time I'm going to discard a Swiftwater Cliffs, which is a little bit aggressive. But the one life should not matter because I think I can win this turn. Now I also get a bird off of this, and I attack for 10 in the air, finishing the game. The decks were just not that fun to play. They felt underwhelming. As for personal request, I made a Boros aggro deck, and I decided to make that big Welcome to Magic deck with a Simic ramp build. Terra Stomper, Palakworm, and Nisian Wild Ravager would top the curve, and a suite of counterspells would keep things in check. Early Elvish Rejuvenator and Growth Spiral would ramp out to these threats. Once again, I pulled out too many cards, and once again I cut down. And once again, the match was set. Game 1, I was dispatched before I could even get out a legitimate threat. Evan mounted a series of attacks that put me out of my misery. Game 2, I returned the favor, plowing in with an army of large beasts that finished the game, which was a testament to how well balanced this batch of decks was. One deck could take a game depending on the hand. This set the floor for Game 3. Evan plays a land, casts Fanatical Firebrand, attacks me for 1, and passes. I play a land for a turn, I cast Elvish Mystic, and pass the turn. Evan plays his second land, casts Cavalry Drillmaster, and attacks me for 3. I do not block. Evan passes the turn. I tap 2 mana to play a Druid of the Cowl and play a Woodland Stream tapped, and pass. Evan plays a Mountain. He then taps 2 mana and plays another Cavalry Drillmaster, this time giving the +2/+0 to the other Cavalry Drillmaster. He plays a Hammer Hand on his Cavalry Drillmaster, making my Druid of the Cowl unable to block. He then attacks for 8. And passes the turn. I play a land for turn, tap 1 mana to play an Elvish Mystic, and pass the turn. Evan plays a Mountain, and attacks, this time for 3. I block with Elvish Mystic. I tap 3 mana to play Elvish Rejuvenator. I grab an island on tapped. And at my end step, Evan uses his Fanatical Firebrand to blow up my Elvish Mystic. Evan taps 2 mana to play Generator Servant and attacks for 3. I take it. I untap, play a land, and pass the turn. Evan plays his land for turn, and then attacks for 3. Here I double block, and everything dies. Except for my Elvish Mystic. I play my land for turn, and pass the turn. Evan plays planes this time, and attacks with both of his creatures. Elvish Mystic blocks his Generator Servant, yet I still go down to 3 life. He passes the turn, and I pass back. Attacks for 2, and I go down to 1. He then casts, but does not resolve, in a Crow and Hoplite, which is countered by a Frill Mystic. During my turn, I play another Elvish Rejuvenator, and this time I find and put on the battlefield tapped a Woodland Stream. I then pass the turn. Evan simply plays a land and passes. I attack with my 3/2, that is blocked with a 2/1. Both die, and in my second main, I cast a Steel Leaf Champion. Evan plays a Pacifism on my Steel Leaf Champion and passes. At his end step, I play a Naturalized targeting Pacifism to destroy it. I attack for 6, and Evan takes it. I then pass the turn. Evan plays yet another Pacifism on my Steel Leaf Champion, and passes. At his end step, I cast another Naturalized, targeting Pacifism once again, and destroying it. I then attack for 6. In my second main phase, I play a Nessian Wilds Ravager. Evan chooses not to play Tribute. During his turn, he plays a Pacifism that is countered by my Negate. He then passes the turn. I then attack for lethal. Yet after all of this, we have gained more than the tools necessary to teach a player. The knowledge that we can teach a player. Let me explain. Playing Magic is like riding a bike. Once you learn, it is very difficult to forget how to do it. Over time, you better your technique. You learn the importance of not slamming on your brake or using the front brake at high speeds. You learn when to play your instants and that blocking doesn't tap creatures. But when someone asks you to teach them how to ride a bike, you say yes only when you are confident that you know how. It is the same in Magic. When we teach a player, it is a rare moment of reflection. We hardly recognize how far we have come until we look at the new player that was once us.